So if you're just here to see the fish and not stay for the fishing trip, you should be able to go to around 8 minutes and 30 seconds. So I put a blooper at the very end. I had no idea the video was still rolling. It had come on, I reckon, by itself, or I never had turned it off one. If y'all would, please hit the thumbs up or the thumbs down and leave me a comment. I love hearing from you. I thank y'all for watching. Hello everybody, welcome back to Burnt Church. I hope everybody's having a good day. It's beautiful here. It's hot, but it's beautiful. We've got all of our chores done. You can see back here in the background, we've got the mowing done, the weed eating. We've got all the vegetables picked out of the garden. And it's time to have some fun. This is about the only time you'll see this country boy in a pair of shorts. So come on, let's go have a little fun. I love these old gravel roads. There's not many of them left around here. This is a beautiful hole of water right here. We need to get down there some way. We call this wading the creeks. And if you had never done it, it's a lot different than any other fishing you'll ever do. I've got some funny stories here in a few minutes, I'll tell you. But first, let's cast out here and see if we can catch anything. I'm using a Melps. Kind of like a rooster tail. But I like the Melps a lot better. They have a better bearing and stuff here on them. When they hit the water, they're going to be spinning most of the time. A lot of times these big holes of water, I don't have much luck at. We'll move on up the creek up through here and see if we can find some smaller little holes and see if we can do any good. We're going for smallmouth or largemouth or what we call a black perch. I think it's called a rock bass. It's got red eyes. We call them a black perch is what we call them. Those are basically the three fish that we might catch here. There's some old tires in the water right out there. Sometimes those smallmouth really like it laying around some kind of structure like that. I was going to tell you about some funny stories. Which I was raised out here in the country, and all these other boys was too, that I growed up with. I had one friend that he fished all the time in the lake and river and even in some creeks. Well, we was about seniors in high school and we co-opted out of school. If you know what co-opting out means, it means you get out of school early to go to work. Well, on this day, we didn't have to go to work. So we co-opted out and headed up here to the creek. Now, like I said, he'd never been wading as far as I know, or at least not the way we was gonna go. We went out in a big hole of water like this right here. And there's alligator gars, is what we call them, in these big holes of water. We got out there about head deep nearly. We was almost having to swim to get through the hole of water. And we was a-fishing along, them alligator gars went to floating up around us. And you talking about scaring him now. It scared him. He got out of that water and onto the bank. He still remembers it today. We'll talk about it sometime. That was his first experience with it. I'd done it before. You get in some pretty hairy situations, I guess is what you'd call it. You out there wading and in one of these big holes of water and snakes go to swimming across and stuff. It does get a little scary feeling. But we're gonna move on up here to a smaller hole of water and see if we can't catch a fish. So we'll move on up through here and right over in here around this tree that's blowed down. Looks like might be a good place. I don't need many. Just one or two would make me a mess. My wife don't eat them. It's kind of the wrong part of the day. I meant to get an earlier start. It's nearly too hot, I bet, right now for them. I have caught some sauger in here also. That cast there should have got one. It may be fished out. We'll move on up through here and see. I'm not going to stay too long, probably about an hour. It almost looks like it's rained up the creek, and if it has rained and got it a little bit dirty, they won't bite hardly. We broke off there. I'm going to try this Melps right here. It's a little smaller than the one I had, and it's silver instead of bronze. When I was a kid growing up around here fishing, you didn't lose a bait. Just like then when I got hung, I would have swam over there and got it whenever I was a kid, even if I had to dive down in there to get it. Now I may get this one before I leave. I would have to take my phone and stuff off the lead over here on the bank, and I just didn't feel like doing that right then. Get this line snipped off. There, we're ready to go. That silver is flickering a lot more than that brass was, so maybe they'll hit it. I've seen it make a lot of difference. I've been using brass before, and my buddy be using silver, and maybe he'd be catching all the fish, or vice versa. You have to swap baits. I ain't had any luck yet. This was one of the first places I brought my wife on one of our first dates. She was kind of a city girl, and you talking about having fun. It was fun that day. She'd never done anything like this. Probably never had even swam in the creeks before, but I brought her up through here wading, and we had a ball. We'll try along this bank over here. See if we can do any good. There should be a black perch laying around over there. It probably is not showing up on the camera, but there's a little bench around that bank, and it's holler up and under it where they can lay. Looks like it ought to be a real good place. I may have just not found the right color yet. I may have to try some different baits here in a few minutes. These has all been pretty big holes of water. Like I said, I have better luck in small holes of water. These big holes of water, if you do catch anything, it seems like you'll usually catch it at the top of the hole or the bottom. Through the middle, I usually don't have much luck. That may be right the opposite here today, but that's how it normally is. We finally hung this one here. I believe it's a smallmouth. He's not a real big one, but I ain't forcing him too hard. I don't know what pound test line I've got on here. He's a pulling hard. If we can get him in, that'll be a good one for the grill. I'm going to try to slide him right up on the bank up here is what I'm going to try to do. He's a pretty one. This here is a deep hole of water. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get across it today. I don't really believe I can with carrying my camera and video and stuff. There goes my water bottle. Had to catch that. I need a drink of water. This big hole of water right here reminds me of one time me and my son and my first cousin was a fishing. I had brought them up here. My son was about 5 or 6 years old, and my first cousin, he was probably about 12. Neither one of them could swim. And we was right by a big hole of water like this, and it was real swift off into it. And we had a good stringer of fish, probably had 10 good fish on there, black perch and bass. and we was just about back down here to the truck. And I had been telling both of them the whole time to stay away from that deep water. Well, I was standing there fishing just right at the edge of it, and here they come. My first cousin was the one carrying the fish. Well, they come over there, and they got to getting in that swift water, and it got taking them down into that deep. Well, my first cousin was the first one down in there, over his head, so I had to get down in there and try to get him out. I could sort of touch bottom, and it wasn't over my head. It was just almost over my head, but it was real swift. Well, anyway, I got him picked up, and here come my son down through there, over his head. So I had to grab him too, and we like to never got out of there. It was swift pushing us down, and I finally got, my first cousin just hung on to my shoulders, and I took my son and slung him up towards the bank to where he could touch the bottom, and then I dragged my first cousin on out. Well, when it was all said and done, the stringer of fish was gone. I swam in there. There was a bunch of old logs and stuff in it. I swam in there hunting them fish probably for an hour or so. Never did find them. My son, he still remembers that today, but my first cousin, he passed away last year. He wasn't but 36, I think. But there's just all kinds of memories associated with doing things like this. When you grow up out here doing this, this is where your memories are. So what we've got here is what I call a red-bellied sun perch. And I'm going to show you how I clean these. Now, I can't show you the whole process, but I can show you part of it. I try to make sure that the fish ain't alive anymore. I'll lay him flat down, I'll take my knife, and I'll pull against the scales. You can see these scales right here coming off. You go all over the fish and get the scales off of it. I go as far up here as I can. But that's basically how you clean a small fish. You just get the scales off of it. You can skin it, but on these this small, I just take the scales off of them, and that's how I'll cook them, fins and all. So after it's said and done, we had 2 fish. We've got 1 bass, and I took the skin off of him. This is what it'll look like whenever you take the skin off of it. And then we had one of these little perch. And I left the skin on it, and I scaled it. We didn't have the best catch, but this is food, and it's in a bad situation, this would be real good food. Well, it's real good food right now. I love them. I hadn't had any in a while, and I had been wanting to go and catch a few to cook. So I've got me a couple here now to cook and eat. Well, I thank y'all for watching. I pray God blesses you, and I'll see you in the next one. The good Lord willing, we out of here. Are you kidding me? Maybe Crocs ain't the way to go out here. Must be nearly 50, boy. Used to eat this bank up.